Hi, this is Elise Buie with the Maximum Mom podcast, and we are on today on a different day than normal. And I am here welcoming Ali Smedley as my guest. Ali, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, I'm
really
super
excited to be here.
Yeah. Okay, and Ali and I just had a super fun conversation. I'm sure we'll be able to get into some of that. First, Ali, tell us, I always like to know, tell us who makes you a family, like who's in your family?
Okay, so I'm married for 22 years. I married the guy that I met the first week of college. So we
No
lived,
way. Wow.
yeah, we lived in the same dorm and we started dating. We dated through all 4 years. We got engaged the summer between our junior and senior years, and we got married 9 months after we graduated.
That's
Which,
amazing.
while wonderful, I do not recommend to most people because you are dead broke when you graduate college.
Yeah.
And so it just makes things that much harder. And we have a 16-year-old daughter who's going to be 17 years old next month. She's going to get her driver's license. We're in New Jersey, so Jersey is a little bit later for driving. Starting to, look at the college process. And I have 4 cats and 1 dog. Like I said, probably one of those cats will come strolling right across.
Yeah,
at some point. They get jealous. It's like they know when you can't pay attention to them.
Absolutely.
The last podcast I did, one of them came around behind the screen and was like right here, and I'm holding him off. And I picked him up real quick and tossed him on the floor, and he just got back up and came around again. So it's like, fine. And I just put him on my lap, and the whole time he just sat there.
Oh yeah, if you're a cat owner, there's just only so much you can do with cats.
Yeah, they have no respect for personal space.
Oh yeah.
There's one next to me, but he's asleep, so we're gonna hope he stays there.
Well, tell us about your firm. Like, how long have you been running your firm?
So I'm a sole proprietor right now. So I started Smedley Law Group in December of 2019. So it's been a year and almost, I guess, 6 months, a year and 6 months at this point. Prior to that, I was in a partnership for 4 years.
Okay.
With another individual, and we just decided that we would do better on our own than together. So we had an amicable dissolution of the practice. She moved on to another firm where she's an associate, and I opened Smedley Law Group. And before that, I was a partner in a 3 partnership firm called Trace Jenkins, which was actually my very first employer when I came out of law school.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and funny little side story is Trace, Mary Kay Trace, who hired me, was my mom's divorce attorney, but I did not know that until after I accepted the position and told her who I was working for. So it's for a fun story. But I had been there. I got hired in 2006, so they made me a partner in 2014. So I've been an owner in some capacity, I guess, for 7 years.
Wow. Yeah, what a journey though. I mean, you've seen it all, both like a firm, then working in a partnership, and then now running it yourself.
Definitely. I've seen, when I was with Trace Jenkins, I was essentially a junior partner. I had a minority partnership, not a whole lot of decision making. We were a decent sized firm. We had 5 attorneys. And then the senior partners just decided that they're done managing. They didn't want to do it anymore. They've actually both stayed on as of counsel in my next practice, which was nice.
Yeah.
So I still kind of had like my mentors with me and everything. And then we had built that practice back up to 5 attorneys. And then one of my counsel left and one of my associates left. And we kind of just decided, we wanted different things. And I still wanted, I have a vision for where I want to go and what I want to do. And so I started Smedley Law Group to further that.
That's awesome. I mean, you and I talked before though about, just how difficult it is to run a firm. I mean, do you want to speak a little about some of the differences you see from being in a partnership versus working on your own? Because I know I get people all the time that ask me, why didn't you have a partnership, or why don't you want a partnership? And I have to say, like, I was such a student of Lee Rosen. Lee doesn't have anything good to say about partnerships. And so I kind of always steered clear of them. probably not the most well thought out decision, just, one thing I just didn't do. So tell us a little bit about how was it and what do you see as the difference and what is the benefit to you of not being in a partnership?
The benefit to not being in a partnership is it's my vision.
Right,
It's solely my vision. It's literally whatever I want Smedley Law Group to be,
right,
barring, some sort of outside force that I have no control over. That's what it's going to be. I don't have
right.
to get anybody else's opinion. I don't have to get anybody else's input. I can pick the branding. I can pick the mission. I can pick, the vision, the letterhead, web, like everything. It's me. It's what I want. And when I had a partner, we had different styles. We had different views of what we wanted the firm to look like. And that was okay. It just showed us that we just weren't good together.
Right.
As partners, that we really weren't well suited to be partners. And that was something that I think we both learned as we were doing it.
Right.
We got along. It was, we got along in the beginning. We got along throughout. We just wanted different things, had different marketing ideas, different views on how to handle staff. And it's kind of like a marriage,
It is. Yeah.
and people, when they marry, most times, you spend a lot of time with that person, you date that person, you find out all the quirks and all those things. And I think when people enter into business partnerships, they don't necessarily do that the same way.
Right. Mhm.
And all those little things that make a relationship difficult, a personal relationship difficult, can make a business relationship difficult.
Right.
And I like the freedom. The thing I miss is having, collaboration.
Mhm.
But I have other colleagues that I'm friends with some are in very large firms and some are in smaller firms. You get a different perspectives and things like that. But overall, I like the freedom. Like as soon as we made the decision to split, I came up with, part of my branding is a phoenix.
Mhm.
It's really cool. It's drawn out of smoke. So it's on my Facebook page, it's, I believe it's our profile picture, and it is a smoke painting that my cousin did. She's a photographer. And I said, can you create this for me? And she did. It's literally painted out of smoke and it's colored. So it's kind of like a rainbow transition.
Mhm.
And for me, that's how I see divorce. Divorce doesn't have to be the end of something. It can be the start of something amazing.
Totally.
And you get a chance to start over and live the life you wanted to live instead of living for somebody else.
Absolutely.
And our tagline is your life, your family, you reborn.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Kind of
That's amazing.
focus on that,
Right.
because my parents got divorced when I was a kid, and I saw, the inside portion of that from a child's perspective. I was 8. I have a younger brother, he was 6. So we lived that growing up in the 80s where, my mom had the majority of the time with us. My dad had every other weekend, and we just lived that life. And I always wanted to show other people, like, you can come out on the other side of that and be okay. And that just because you lost the life you thought you were going to have, that doesn't mean that the life you're going to have can't be something incredible in and of itself.
Yeah. I mean, I think the exact same thing. I was saying to somebody yesterday, I was like, divorce is transformational for me more than traumatic. I think of it as just an amazing opportunity if people address it kind of with the right mindset, if they come into it or at least can learn and grow during the divorce process, because sometimes they don't come in with the right mindset.
No.
But I think over time, working with professionals that can help them change and kind of flip that mindset and get it where it's right, I think you can really use divorce as such a stepping stone for, your next best life and figure out what's next.
It's empowerment, I think, with a lot. I mean, I've helped women who didn't know how to write a check
right
in the beginning to get them to a point where, they're living on their own and planning their life. And that makes me feel really good to look at that person now and go, I played a part in that. I helped them see who they were or who they always were. And they just didn't know where that person was. So
I find it's the most rewarding thing we do, is really being able to help people get to the other side. I mean, I have the same thing where recently I represented a doctor, the dad, and he hadn't I mean, he was busy, he had a big job or whatever, so he wasn't like super, involved in all the day-to-day things, but I mean, he was an excellent dad, and they had made decisions as a family how to handle things. And obviously now with the divorce, they were having to rethink those and make new decisions. And I mean, I worked so hard to ensure that he could have good quality time with his children, despite the fact that he had this big job. But I mean, he was very willing to make changes and do things. And it's been so rewarding to see, somebody get that kind of time and be able to step up and be such a great dad, even though maybe on the surface, it would have seemed like mom would be entitled to more things. And I love being able to help parents kind of not look at whatever they've done in the past, but really think about, okay, we're faced with new decisions here. So how do we make good ones, and how do we help our children thrive through this?
Right. Because I mean, at the end of the day, the kids are the ones who have no say in any of this.
Exactly.
That it's a decision of the adults. They live out their parents' decisions, good, bad, or otherwise.
Yep.
And I'll tell people, yes, maybe your husband has hours that don't work, but let's find something that works, because it's, at the end of the day, they're going to benefit from having both of you in their lives.
Absolutely.
If somebody wants that time. Now, I've had cases where somebody wants some like equal time, but it's just not feasible.
Not practical.
And that's a conversation too, because sometimes
Yep.
there's financial motivators with things like that, but you have to get them there. And like, that's part of my job is to get them there. And one of the things I try to do with my clients is I don't just tell them what they want to hear.
Right.
A lot of people just
Totally.
want that. They just want somebody to validate
No.
what they're feeling. And yes, it's okay if you want to, drag this person through the dirt, or you want to punish them, or you want to take the children because that's the easiest way to hurt somebody else, and get them to a point where they see that this is like the people you are hurting at the end of the day are the people you supposedly care about the most.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just flat out ask people, I'm like, do you actually hate your ex more than you love your children? And I'm like, because that's surely how you're acting. And and it's really interesting to hear people, answer that question, or really be stumped by it, when we're talking and they're like, whoa, okay, no one's ever asked me that. And that was pretty rude, Elise. And, like, no, I don't. But yeah, I see what you're saying, because a lot of times I agree with you. I mean, I think being just straight up blunt with clients, I think it's probably one of the harder things we have to do, and especially in family law, because I think we have some pretty intense conversations with our clients.
Yeah.
And
because they live it.
Critical. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
One of the things I'll try to get through to them is they're going to do whatever you do. So people, and I'm sure this is probably the same everywhere, they get hung up on holidays.
Oh,
I want Christmas. I want Christmas Eve. I have to have
Right.
Thanksgiving. We always did Thanksgiving with my family. And I'll say, from experience, I'll say, my mom, we have a wonderful Christmas Eve tradition. Every year we're Italian. We do the dinner of the 7 fishes. And that's my mom's thing. She loves it. Every year, even like through my married life, we go there on Christmas Eve. My dad hasn't seen me on for Christmas Eve dinner in forever. So we have lunch on Christmas Eve. Like, that's what we started doing with him, is we did a lunch. And if I can't see, my mom goes to see my brother for Thanksgiving. So we'll do that and have a dinner when she gets back. It's what you make of it.
Totally.
Christmas is December 25th, but if you want to have the big blowout with the tree and Santa or whatever celebration you have on December 28th, that doesn't make it any less meaningful.
Exactly.
Kids.
It's so important. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, we philosophically are so aligned in that. And I think it's just so important for clients to hear that. I mean, when you have, as you have evolved from being in a firm, then in a partnership, and then now on your own, I mean, what are some of the takeaways for you when you've started your own firm that were real important? Like, I mean, have you been involved in coaching? Have you been involved in various groups? I mean, how have you helped yourself as you went out on your own in trying to do the stuff we do as a mom, a lawyer, and a law firm owner? I mean, it's a lot to juggle. And
it is a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
one of the things from the very beginning. So when I graduated law school, I was pregnant. Like I said, I got married very young. I got married at 22, right after I graduated college. And in my third year of law school, my husband looked at me and said, I'm pretty sure I want to be a father by the time I'm 30. And he was 28 at the time. I said, we probably should have had this conversation a few years ago. So I tried, I thought I could successfully squeeze in a pregnancy through my last year of law school, have the baby, take the bar, and then go get a judicial clerkship with like no problems whatsoever, which means that isn't how it happened at all. So ended
That's
up
hilarious, because that is exactly what happened to me. Like,
I really,
yes. I mean,
now, did you get it all threaded properly?
Well, being that it was completely unplanned, but yeah, I was pregnant, took the bar pregnant, then got a judicial clerkship pregnant, and then had the baby, and went back to the clerkship after
Okay.
a few days off, because that's a whole nother conversation. But
oh gosh,
my judge's idea of maternity leave was interesting.
Oh my God. So for me, it didn't work. I ended up with a medically complicated pregnancy. I ended up on bed rest. I had to withdraw from the bar exam. So I had my daughter the week before the July 2004 bar. So, and I spent a week in the hospital. So as my friends are finishing and going out and getting, wasted because they're celebrating, I'm like, yeah, I'm still sitting in the hospital with this newborn here. This is like, I took the bar in February with a 6-month-old. Then, because I was already in the middle of the clerkship year, I was working a job in jewelry at the time. So I went back to that job, and then I had a clerkship in September. I took a job with a smaller firm to get flexibility so I could be a mom.
Right.
I always said, I'm really proud to be a lawyer, but I don't want Abby to grow up and go, well, my mom was a lawyer and that was great, but I never saw her ever at anything. So working in a small firm, there's certain risks that go with that. There's lack of advancement. There's, lower income. We're in a small county in South Jersey. So the salaries are lesser than it would be in the northern part of the state. But I was able to go to, her plays, her awards at school, her sporting events. I could go to her cheer competitions. And so when I started my firm, like that's my priority. Those are my priorities, especially now that she's nearing the end of high school. We just got back from going to Florida for a national competition. And I said, I'm going, and I'm dead to you. Like I'm dead to you for these couple days we're doing this, run this firm, handle the problems. There's nothing that can't wait until I get back. And I was able to get to that point by doing personal coaching. Because I'm one of those personality types where I will always try to take care of somebody else before I will take care of myself.
Totally.
That gets to be a lot after a while, because that's how you just burn out, because you're always doing for other people.
It's exhausting. Yeah,
it is. I was the president of the Gloucester County Bar Association in 2019, going into COVID. So their term is June to June. So I had like half of a normal term, and then everything blew up, and I had to start coordinating with the judiciary and the local judicial staff and the family law section and all of these things. Cat, excuse me. This is Sam. He's on time. So pardon me while I get him settled.
Yeah, no worries.
I had been her team mom for cheerleading the year before that. And I had said, I can't do it this year because I can't do both. And she's like, no, I understand. You did it the year before. That was great. I had just started coaching with Allison Williams, probably 4 months before we did it. Started with my partner 4 months before my partnership dissolved. And that's really helped me kind of get myself in a headspace to realize that, like, I don't have to do it all, that it's okay to delegate things. It's okay to let other people take care of stuff. Because I think, it's very easy, especially for women, to get kind of a perfectionist personality where nobody can do it as good as I can. So I'm just not going to give it to anybody else because I don't want to screw it up.
Yeah.
It's a toxic mentality to have, because all it does is exhaust you. And I still struggle with it, but the coaching helps. I've worked with her. I've done some programs with David Nagel, and they've been helpful to at least help me recognize patterns where, you kind of self-sabotage into that. Because I think the only way you can truly succeed, and especially if your goal is to grow, which is my goal. I want to grow this practice where I'm the CEO. I'm vision casting. I have big dreams for this.
Right.
You have to be able to let go. That's
Oh,
been the hardest part to do that.
I think delegation, I mean, is like the skill that we all have to learn and
Mhm.
master. And to me, as part of delegation, it's that, also holding people accountable and, not just kind of what I call like abdication versus delegation, but
Right.
really learning how to delegate in a way that's, specific, measured, all those things, time bound or whatever that SMART acronym is, for delegation. And then really being able to continually cascade the delegation throughout the whole team. I mean, I find like much of my time is spent helping my other team members similarly learn to delegate so that
Yes.
they can be, delegating to other people. I mean, we have these white flags, like I have one here. We sent them out to everybody. But
Okay.
so when people are on Zoom, if anyone is stressed out, I really want to know it, because then that means to me like they do need to delegate, and we're, missing something somewhere in that they've gotten so stressed out. And so
Yeah.
I find delegation just to be critical in this.
And it's not taught. Like
Oh,
it's funny, they don't teach you
not at all.
how to run a business in law school. I feel like law school barely teaches you how to be a lawyer,
Right,
how to do that. They teach you absolutely nothing about the practice of
right,
running a law firm. And so a lot of it's trial and error. So I'll come up with, a system and we'll have to tweak it because it doesn't work or it's not
right,
practical. And I'll say to my staff all the time, I don't sit in your seat. So I can look at this, from above from where I am as the attorney and go, okay, this makes sense to me.
right,
But when you're doing it, if it doesn't make sense to you because you're the one executing the task, you have to tell me and then we'll change it. We'll
right.
find something that works, and I do try to say, like, if you guys feel overwhelmed or you're stressed or things, or the duties are unaligned, you got to let me know
They
because
do.
I don't know. And especially like this, because we're kind of spread out. I have a couple people in the office. I have a couple people remote, and it's definitely a learning experience. I hired my first virtual assistant. We
Oh,
were
good for
a
you.
brick and mortar, paper, everything. I mean, we scan stuff in, but like I
No way.
before this, so in the last year, I've developed a quasi virtual practice, and I will say it was partly against my will. I
Right.
love paper. I learn better, like I process better
Sure.
you having paper, but I've adapted, but I've had to create like these systems out of whole cloth. At
Wow.
the same time, I was starting my firm with people that had only been doing the brick and mortar thing with me because I took two of my employees from the prior firm with me. So and one of them had actually worked with me all the way back at my very first firm when I first got hired. So
Oh,
we kind of
wow.
like, every firm kind of absorbed like the last one in terms of like
Right.
equipment and systems and procedures. And so we had all these things that had been like really set. And then everybody went home and we went, okay, now what do we
Right.
do?
Now what?
How do we, how do we, I'd never heard of Microsoft Teams until like 2 days before we closed the office. And I'm like, how are we going to communicate with each other?
Wow.
So it's interesting to do that, but it's getting people to admit
Wow.
when they're struggling, especially in this environment
Yes.
where for my firm, all of this was new,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Oh, I can't even imagine. I mean, because
Yeah.
we've been virtual since 2015. And so
Oh,
COVID
wow.
was a non-issue for us from that perspective.
Okay.
I mean, we've always been paperless. We've always had a virtual practice. We do have an office downtown, but we didn't use it regularly. And so, I mean, I haven't stepped foot in the office since February 2020. Um,
Wow.
and so, yeah, so that part was really smooth from our perspective. And it was interesting because at the time COVID hit, I mean, it became, really interesting. Like I kept getting asked to talk to people about managing a virtual firm. And I did not realize how many firms were just like yours, where
Yeah.
actual paper was being used. I haven't touched that legal paper in so many years. I was kind of dumbfounded.
Okay.
I didn't realize certain counties and certain states still dealt with that. Like we've had electronic filing here in Seattle forever.
Okay. So
So yeah, it was very different. And that's interesting from a COVID perspective to see
yeah.
how different firms were impacted by having to go home. I mean, I
It
can't
was huge for
imagine.
us.
Oh, I can't imagine you dealing with that. You dealing with ending your partnership, dealing with COVID, being
Yeah.
dealing with the bar association. And then
What-
didn't your daughter also have like a major thing happen?
Yeah. She, in August of 2019, she tore her ACL during one of her cheerleading practices, and she ended up
Wow.
having surgery 3 weeks later. It ended her whole season.
Right.
Cheerleading is there's no professional aspect to it. So there's like end date for
Sure.
most athletes. I mean, there's teams where you can be older, but most of them have a cutoff point. And so she lost her entire sophomore year. She had surgery. She had 9 months of rehab. So that was a lot of like, I had to drive her to physical therapy 3 days a
Yeah.
week. And we spent 6 months in one facility, and she needed more work. When they sent us to another facility for like the next step, they said, no, she needs more PT. So it was 3 more months of PT and then that stuff. So that was like half an hour from my house. So I would, sit in my car on my computer and
Right.
catch up on emails while she's in there doing the therapy. It was a whole, it was a
It's
whole
a
lot.
whole lot.
And she stayed on the team. So she was still going to practices
Sure.
and sitting
Yeah.
and watching. And we traveled. The last competition we went to was NCA in Dallas in the last weekend of February 2020.
Wow.
So that was, it was a whole lot. And when we closed our office, we literally looked like we were fleeing something. Like I had people packing up computers and paper and boxes, and I'm like, I don't know when we're coming back, so get what you need. And like,
Right.
and then it was like, then I realized, people are using their crappy home personal laptops, and they're
Right.
dying on them. So then I have to buy laptops, and then some people's printers aren't great, or they don't have the right,
Right.
like my internet was really weak where I'm sitting in my house. So I had to get like one of those booster things to plug into an Ethernet cable that's in the wall that talks to my router. And it's like,
Oh my.
all kinds of, I would go in, I'm like, okay, now I need 2 monitors. So then I went in and like filched a monitor and brought that home and set that up. And it's been, in New Jersey. So New Jersey has e-filing in every part except family. We were the
No
last,
way.
we were the last division on the list to be set up for e-courts, and they hadn't done it. And I will give the New Jersey Judiciary a lot of credit. They pivoted on a dime. They had a program that we call JEDS, the Judicial Electronic Documentary System. And it's not as good as e-courts, because e-courts, you can go in and like pull down filings and look at other things. JEDS is just a document pass-through system.
Mm-hmm.
But they launched that thing in like within 3 to 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And they came up with an interim system. So as bar president, I had to work and communicate to the members of the bar. All right, this is how it's going to work. They set up these email boxes. This is where you're going to file everything as they're getting JEDs online. And this is how you're going to communicate with the judge's staff. And this is like,
Wow.
and then they got JEDs online. So all of that's new also. And it's not consistent in every county. So if somebody files something in JEDs, if another opposing party files it, I don't get a notification. I have to wait for them to send it to me. So it's literally like just a one-way pass through.
Oh.
And then because they weren't great at getting it to the judges, then you have to make sure when you file in JEDs, you also send the same thing to the judges. So you know that they get it. So it was like developing the firm system and then changing all my systems, because all my systems were set up for in-house paper. 4 years ago, I bought a beautiful historic building built in 1833. My partner and I rehabbed the whole thing. It's an old house.
Oh.
And it sat vacant for most of a year until we just started going back in. But we were absolutely a 100% paper transacted office. So to even though it's frustrating, I'm really proud of how far we've come.
Absolutely. I mean,
I'm not techie like, at all.
I mean, you need kudos like I've never heard. What you have dealt with in this year kind of amazes me.
It's been a real challenge, and it's frustrating at times. It's staff gets frustrated with each other. I get frustrated with them. They get frustrated with me. But they've all stepped up, and there's mistakes. I've screwed up. They've screwed up. We work on it. We try to fix it. We try to have grace with each other. Like I had said before we went live, my mom has stepped in to fill in for my office manager who left, and she's been amazing. Like totally like grabbed it and ran with it. And she asked a lot of questions, which is good because,
Yeah.
you know, you need to know how to do it. But when I tell her I have no idea how that thing used to run because I never touched it before in my life because I didn't have to, I say, develop a system. Tell me what you did. I'll tell you if it's good, if it's not going to work. And she's done that. And
That's
so
amazing.
I've been
I
very
love
lucky
that.
to have people to kind of jump in and help out that the way that they have. And the hope is that, you know, other attorneys, your clients and things just give you a little grace as you're doing these things. Cause you don't want to say, hey, look, we've never done this before. So
Right.
we're learning,
Oh,
you know?
I feel like we have had to say, I mean, though our court, you know, has had e-filing forever, we have had, I don't know how many, it's close to like 25 emergency orders over the course of this year, changing various things. So
Yep.
like every time we think we get it under control and we know what we're doing, then all
And
of
they
a sudden
change.
a new emergency court order. I mean, our clients must think we're a little wackadoodle because, you know, it'll be like, well, that's how we filed motions a week ago, but now there's a new process. And so now the motion that we thought we filed got kicked back or whatever. I mean, and it's been, you know, having to have a lot of those conversations with
Yeah.
clients because, I mean, we have no control over those. And
Nope.
we're all doing
Nope.
the best we can.
Yeah.
But I love your attitude. I mean, just listening to you, you're so upbeat. I mean, despite having a year of just thing after thing after thing that could have knocked any one of them could have knocked you down. And the fact that you handle all of them and you still have such a positive attitude. I mean, I have to ask you, I mean, it's interesting. You and I both, I know, have at least done some work with both Allison and David Nagel. And it was interesting, just the other night, I happened to wake up and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I literally binged David Nagel, the Successful Mind podcast for hours. I listened to so many. And my poor family's like, oh gosh, here she goes again. She's going to share something else. I mean, one of the podcasts that I listened to that was just so striking to me, and it was about, you know, kind of like those roles that we land in behaviorally, you know, from whatever our childhood situation was, and our life kind of reinforces whatever that role is, you know, because that's just how we do things, and we have
Patterns.
that automatic thing. Whereas, and in the podcast, he was talking about, you know, every day you can make a choice and you can decide what you're going to do differently. And it was so simple, yet so profound to think like, I mean, I don't have to do this same thing, kind of like you, like, I don't have to do an all paper office. Okay, now we have a virtual office, you know, and
Right.
you can choose. And I'm curious, like, what have been some of your takeaways from David and Allison that you think have helped you with your kind of just, I mean, go to get her done attitude that has allowed you to be so positive?
I think between the two of them, it's recognizing the patterns. Like one of my weaknesses is I will in the moment. It's very easy to slide back into the pattern. You know, if something starts going wrong, like my instantaneous reaction is to get overly frustrated. And when I step back and I think, I go, okay, like, why am I reacting this way? You know, am I reacting this way because of what happened or because of what I'm interpreting it to mean for me? Like, what am I saying? Like, do I feel like somebody screwed up because they're trying to piss me off, or, you know, it's a personal thing against me? And it's not. Most people aren't wired with that. I'm not going to do this thing so I can make her angry, you know, or upset her or ruin her day. It's recognizing those kinds of things. And it's a daily struggle. There are days where lots of things go wrong, and I had a bad day last week, and I just like I walked into the other room. My husband was watching Harry Potter, and I flopped down on the couch. He goes, "What?" And I said, "I need a break." I said, "I have to step away. Like, I need to just like clear my head and kind of, so I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to watch a movie with you for half an hour, and I'm going to kind of like just get right in my head and calm down and figure out why I'm upset." And they've got me to realize those patterns, like the things that happen to you, or, you know, feelings of like lack of worth, things like that. Like I got
Right.
picked on a lot as a kid. So you get wired to think that you're not worthy of success or respect or love or any of those things.
Right.
And they really focus on having you realize that, those are not you things, those are other people's things. Like
Totally.
someone else's perception of me is not about me, it's about them.
Yep. Oh, I mean, it's
We actually,
powerful.
it is. I was recently released by two clients, two challenging clients in the last 3 months, and I had stayed in the case because I wanted to collect the outstanding receivable, and I thought that if I got out of the case, that wasn't going to happen. I really wanted to try to make it right, and we were just
Right.
weren't a good fit. It took a lot. Like those kinds of teachings got me to realize, like the fact that we weren't a good fit was not me, was not my fault.
Right.
That it wasn't some moral failing on my fault or some, professional inability on my fault. We just weren't a good fit. And when they fired me, it was a relief. And I was able to go, that wasn't me. We just weren't right for each other. And that's okay. I'm not for everybody.
No.
There's some people I can get them to see, like, this is how I think we should handle your case. This is, what I think is going to be best for you and your family based on the goals you've given me.
Right.
And other people, I'm not their cup of tea, and that's okay. I used to get really upset about those things. And now I'm going to be
Yeah.
somebody else's cup of tea, and I'll make them happy and get
Absolutely.
them to the place where they want to be. So they're good at having me realize that there's just aspects of my subconscious that I've never even considered before.
Right. Oh,
You
yeah, I
know,
agree. I think it's
it's
so
hugely
powerful.
eye-opening.
It
It
is.
is.
And you just hit the nail on the head, though. I think the whole thing of understanding your patterns and your behavioral patterns and being able to consciously then make decisions, when you see yourself just habitually doing something and actually asking yourself, like, did I mean to act this way? Or do I intend
Right.
to do this? And, being able to stop that pattern with intent has been, I find, very powerful in just being and living the life that I want to live and not allowing my past patterns to kind of take over. Because I, like you, am
Yeah.
definitely take care of everybody else kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
I think part of that is just being on kinds of things,
Yeah.
but
It's hard to ask
definitely
for
my
help, I
role.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you're conditioned to be a caretaker,
Yep.
it's hard to ask for help
Oh,
from anybody.
virtually impossible.
You kind of get trained, I think, at a young age that asking for help is a sign of weakness.
Completely.
That you
Yeah.
don't want to be perceived that way. And there have been times where I've been in coaching sessions and I've cried out of frustration because I put myself in a situation where I didn't want to delegate again, because you get tied to things and it's like some point of pride. Allison and Wolfgang got me to realize I was resisting. I've been trying to hire an attorney for a year, and that person has just not come to me yet. And there's probably a reason that hasn't happened, but I had never considered hiring somebody equivalent to my experience. And Wolfgang had said, but if your goal is to be the CEO vision caster, you can't be the primary litigator. It just is not enough hours in the day for that. He's like, what is your concern with hiring basically another you? And I said, I would be worried that person wouldn't respect me. If I hired somebody with more litigation experience than me, would they respect me as a boss? He said, well, why wouldn't they? You are the boss. They're choosing to work for you, knowing those things about you. Why just because you have less experience means that you're not worthy of respect, or you're not worthy of, managing somebody who has more years in. He's like, obviously, if they're choosing to be in that like senior associate or of counsel position, like that's their chosen path.
Exactly.
I was taking something and kind of imposing a story on it that wasn't necessarily true.
It would be that mean girl in your head. Mine is called Eloise, and she can be pretty nasty.
I probably need to give mine a name, I think.
Oh yeah, she definitely needs a name. I gave mine a very official name. I think Eloise, I think it's a beautiful name, but it's very official. And
it sounds very, stern and kind of like in your face.
Eloise is definitely, she can do some smack talking to me. So I mean, I have to really talk back to her. And I mean, I think that is, I mean, and I'm in my 50s, like this is the work of my life is, being
Yeah,
able to quiet that negative voice in my head and really ask myself, like, is what she's saying true? Because so much of the
right,
time, she'll say things and I'll be like, Eloise, where did you come up with that? Where
right.
did that come from? And, obviously it came from nowhere half the time. And I mean, other times, to be fair to Eloise, I mean, sometimes it's true. And I'm like, all right, fair enough, Eloise. Like, I'm not so good at that. And, then to me, that's a sign I need to be delegating. I mean, I should not be
Yeah,
doing stuff I suck at. Like,
yeah,
that's not smart.
yeah.
And,
I'm not good at tech, so I have an IT guy, and I'll say to the
yeah,
staff, you have limited room to play, but I don't want you screwing everything up so it costs me $1 zillion to fix whatever you do. So like if it's going to take you more than half an hour to fix, just call him. I don't know what to do. Nobody else knows what to do. Just
yeah.
deal with it. It's eye-opening. Like, and the question about hiring my equivalent was a huge eye-opener.
Oh, yeah.
It really showed me a lot of like what I thought about myself and the value I was placing on myself, that like, why would somebody want to work for me under those circumstances? I had two of counsels that had twice my experience. They chose to stay with me.
Right.
When I started my partnership, that speaks volumes. They could have left. They could have gone and done anything they wanted. We terminated the prior firm. You
Absolutely.
know, that voice, it's dangerous and it's insidious
It,
and it keeps you small is what it does.
yeah.
It's
Well,
designed to keep you small.
and it takes away your confidence. I mean, I feel
Mhm,
like your confidence becomes like Swiss cheese,
mhm.
because you just have to know if you're hitting a hole or not, and being able to look at it and determine that so many of those holes just they're not even holes. I mean, that whatever your mean girl is Alexandra. I don't know, but maybe she's, saying things and it can really impact. I mean, it's insidious in what it can do
Yeah,
to your abilities. And yeah, I agree. And I think working with somebody like Allison and with David and Wolfgang, I mean, I think that allows you to get some real reflection, and have somebody
yeah,
question some of the things that you're doing and thinking. And I mean, I wish I had gotten involved in all the mindset work literally like 30 years ago. I mean,
yeah.
40 years ago would have
From
been
the beginning, I think that stuff is so important, especially when you're first starting out, because everybody's out there trying to tear down your confidence.
right.
You're a baby lawyer, you're fresh meat. Everybody knows that.
Right.
So I, to kind of get that right from the beginning, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it'd be transformative, you
Oh,
know.
I mean, I think about it in terms of, I mean, you mentioned law school, not providing training. I mean, we need, I think, to see in law school both the training on how to run a law firm and also the mindset work. I mean, I think our cases would go so different
Mhm.
if we as attorneys were working always opposed to another attorney who has had similar work on their mindset, so that we're not creating these insane escalated conflicts out of nothing and thus causing more damage to our clients. I mean,
Right.
I feel like a lot of times when you're working with somebody on the other side who really lacks emotional intelligence, I mean, you can just see the case taking left turns that
Yeah.
it doesn't need to take.
Yeah. I have one right now, like because people get caught up in a power trip.
Totally.
I have a case where I got my adversary's pleadings dismissed for failure to fulfill discovery order. And he sent the discovery. I was out of town. My staff called his office twice and said, she's not here. She'll resolve it, review it as soon as she gets back. If it's good, we'll sign the consent order to reinstate. He didn't want to wait and he filed a motion. Like, why? I
Right.
told you I would look as soon as I come back. Like, I can't have a family vacation and you
Right.
can't wait 10 days for me to look at this stuff. Like there's just, I think people, if it would invest in that kind of mindset work and understand how the things that are in their head can be kind of pushed onto other people, and it can drive a case. which is
Oh,
infuriating. It really would, I think, help the litigation process. And
absolutely.
people start out in law school with kind of a bullying aspect, who's the best, who's the highest ranked. I
Absolutely.
did a mock trial class. I'll never forget. I went at night and I worked, and I was terrified of public speaking. So
Right.
people who knew me when I did this was like, you're becoming a lawyer. Why exactly? You don't like to speak in public? I'm like, nope, don't like it. Don't want to do it. I felt like I was going to throw up before all of like my whole first year before every motion. And we
Wow.
had to do like a mock argument. My voice shook through the whole thing, like noticeably shook. And kids were sitting in the seats making fun of me. I went to law school between the ages of 24 and 28. I'm not young. I'm not right out of college. All the night students
Right.
are more adult. And
Right.
these people are making fun of somebody who's trying to work on a skill that she doesn't have. It was hugely demoralizing. And people just like, they don't,
Right.
because of that weakness in themselves and that need to make somebody else feel worse so they can feel better because of whatever junk they have inside of them.
Right.
If people
Yeah.
get educated on that a little more, I think it would go a long way.
Oh, I think it would go a very long way. Well, I really, really appreciate your time today. And I cannot tell you, I mean, I know we talked about how sometimes we forget to like pat ourselves on the back sometimes and actually acknowledge when we're doing something right. I mean, your ability to get through this year and deal with everything you have dealt with and maintain your positive attitude, I just think you deserve so much kudos because I
Thank you.
mean, that it's intense. Yeah, well, I have to say, you're really inspirational to me. I love
Thank you
your
so much.
attitude and and I mean, you're gonna be fine. Yeah, I mean, as we all deal with the agonies of this trifecta of life, that we find
Yeah.
ourselves as moms, lawyers, and business owners. I mean, it is a lot. And I think we do need to step back sometime and really acknowledge what we've done because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that gets accomplished that's really positive. And I think we forget to, say okay and good job and, just add a girl. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to remind
Yeah.
Eloise, I'm like, you could be nice every so often.
All right. Pay me a compliment.
Just once in a
Just
while.
say something.
Well,
No,
I
thank you
hope you,
so much.
oh yeah, well, it's been great talking to you and I hope you enjoy the
Yes.
rest of your evening. And now I'm gonna have to
I
go eat my
will.
lunch. I'm envisioning the salad that you had.
Yes, because it's lunchtime there. It's just about dinner time here.
Exactly, exactly. Well,
It's,
thank you so much.
thank you very much. It's lovely to talking to you.
Absolutely. You have a
Thanks.
great day.
You too. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.